Do I sound like I've been smoking? I'm a 3-pack a day lady.
A little bit, actually.
Yeah. I will try to be dulcet like a dove.
Everybody here is ill. That's probably something that we should say. Let it all out.
Shut up! I hate you! Okay. You and I are in rough shape, man.
Yeah, I'm poorly.
Oh, little diddums, you poorly.
Yeah. There's your
Cold
open. Cold. Only cold open. Emphasis on the common cold open.
Welcome to Save Me From My Shelf, a literature podcast where we take classic tomes off their pedestal to make you less anxious about reading them. Our jokes come from a place of love and for a specific teaching purpose. However, if you think that making fun of great literature, and maybe some mild swearing, is offensive, this might not be the podcast for you. Hello, you are listening to Save Me From My Shelf. Queen Boudica sitting across from me is Daniel.
Oh, yeah, Lord Lover. Yeah, buried under the McDonald's in Kings Norton. The Battle of Watling Street. It was somewhere around here, probably.
Do I get an introduction? Or?
Tecumseh over there. I suppose he's the sort of American answer to Boudica, isn't he? Is Abby?
So Daniel, what is our text today?
You said that we didn't get any letters, but we did. You were wrong.
Did we?
Yeah, we did get a letter. And they wanted a bit of advice. Yeah.
Really? We're agony aunts now?
Yeah, now we're agony aunts, yeah. Dear Abby and Daniel, I have a problem with my personal life and I need you to help me wrangle with it. It's specifically with my in-laws. My father-in-law is dying. My mother-in-law keeps prying into my personal life. My brother-in-law and his wife are eavesdropping on me and my husband. And my marriage is at a sexual impasse. I'm not worried about these things, you can't help me with them. The problem is that all of my in-laws have ridiculous first names, and I can't tolerate it anymore. Can you help? Well, listener, we won't be able to help, but we will be able to complement your experience with today's text, which is Tennessee Williams' Cannot Improve, written in 1955.
Right, so it goes without saying we are about to spoil this play for you. The trigger warnings are cancer, infertility, broken legs, alcoholism, suicide, a lot of off-color remarks. This is a rather shockingly blue play if you have never read it, and a lot of closeted homosexuality, and just kind of generally fucked vibes.
Oh yeah.
So a little note on this, you would expect a lot of queer readings in this text, but because it's kind of on the surface, they're not really readings, it's just kind of what the play is overtly about. So I'll just put in one blanket queer reading thing here, just to cover our bases.
Interesting though that the play's about alcoholism, so all those corks popping might contribute to that.
Again, right on the surface, though, so it's not really a reading.
It's not a subtextual thing, yeah. That never stopped you before, though.
Now. Would you like to do some background, friend?
Yes, I would, please. And thank you. Tennessee Williams. That's not his real name. I can't remember what it was now.
Oh, he got it all gussied up for Broadway.
He was a major 20th century American playwright. M- and troubled soul.
You know you don't have to state your punctuation.
Okay. Tennessee Williams, he had a few difficulties in his life. His sister had kind of lots of mental health problems and was lobotomized in the 1940s. So he was kind of witness to all the kind of horrors of mid-century psychological treatment. He himself was a depressive and alcoholic. He was gay and had a kind of range of tumultuous relationships throughout his life. He died of a barbiturate overdose, so, yeah.
Who's the one who died choking on a cap?
That's him. I think that's a myth, though. I think the doctor put that to kind of obscure the fact that it was more likely suicide.
Oh, interesting.
The plays, they're all kind of sort of Southern Gothic / social issue plays, aren't they? They're quite hard to categorise. I wrote here tragedies of manners. I don't know. That's my own little take.
I coined a term myself. Later on, I'll tell you this now since you're bringing it up here, but in the casting bit, I was trying to think of how best to categorize this. I call this a screwball tragedy.
That's even better. Yeah, I like that. That is what it is, isn't it? Yeah.
I'm sure I'm not the first person to get there. I'm sure somebody else has coined that term.
The other play that we all probably know is A Streetcar Named Desire, more kind of faded Southern Belle stuff. Glass Menagerie, that's quite a famous one, 1934, that's quite an early work. It kind of retells the lives of his, the relationship of his awful mother and his kind of mad sister. Being a Southern Belle ain't all it's cracked up to be, I think, is the general message of his plays. You know, and I can confirm that from personal experience.
You do look divine, Daniel
thank
May.
you. I think that's very kind of you.
The one thing that really surprised me about this play is the frank discussions of sexuality. Some of them are really rather blatant for what we'd expect from 1955. And I think it's important to remember that in this period, many, if not most, incarnations of queerness were actually considered psychological disorders. So you could actually be forcibly hospitalized for being gay. So it's really rather daring, I think, sometimes to commit this to paper.
Is it 1973 in America that
I think it was
got taken off the DSM?
Yeah, yep. But rather scary stuff to admit so frankly in this period.
Yeah.
We open on a plantation house on the Mississippi Delta, a beautiful summer evening, the 1950s. The house was once owned by a pair of nudge nudge wink wink confirmed bachelors in the 19th century.
Wait, what?
The stage directions tell us.
Does it tell us the 19th century?
Yes.
Okay, carry on.
Well, I think quite late
Yeah.
19th century.
Late.
Through the early 20th.
Yeah.
But now, the plantation is owned by Big Daddy and his family. We open on the bedroom of Maggie and Brick. That's right, Brick. Brick is taking a shower, and Maggie is just screaming at him that one of those, quote, no-neck monsters hit her with a hot buttered biscuit, which sounds like some sort of innuendo, but God only knows what sex act that could even describe. So Brick comes out of the shower, and he's like, what's happening? And she screams that one of Brick's brother Gooper, one of his bratty kids, has thrown food at her and ruined her dress. Anyway, Maggie goes on to a very long rant about how Gooper's kids all have no necks. All people with no necks are monsters. How can they scream so loud if they don't have necks? Because where's their voice box located? How can you wring their necks if they don't have necks to wring? And on and on and on. Maggie talks a lot. Just real stream of consciousness stuff. And Brick is like, hey, Lin-Manuel Miranda, is there a volume lower than mute, please?
So, we're at Big Daddy's plantation. It's Big Daddy's birthday. Brick and Maggie and Gooper and his wife and kids, they're visiting for the birthday. We can kind of infer from a lot of the discussion that Big Daddy is not really much of a fan of his grandchildren, the no-neck monsters. And Gooper's wife, May, she can sense that her father-in-law is not a fan. But she still has the advantage over Maggie and Brick that she has children and that they don't have any yet. So there's a kind of tension between the favoritism toward Brick versus the kind of dynastic duty met by Gooper in having had kids. That's the big tension of the play, isn't it?
How many kids do they have? I forgot. Is it 5 kids and she's pregnant again?
There's twins. All I remember, those twins called Dixie and Trixie.
But I think there are 5 kids and
yeah.
she's pregnant again.
Yeah.
I guess somebody doesn't have a TV in the bedroom.
Maggie is concerned that May and Gooper are going to try to get Big Daddy to cut Brick out of his will because we think that Big Daddy's dying of cancer. That's the other big tension, isn't it? That the brothers are rivals and the rivalry is heating up because their dad is dying.
It's Succession Delta Dirtbag edition. Maggie also refers to May as a monster of fertility, because isn't she like perpetually pregnant? She's like a Russian nesting doll.
Yes.
I really hate May as a character, which I suppose is a sign that she's well written.
Yeah, you're meant to hate her, aren't you? Yeah.
She's a woman with polite hair, and I don't know why I think that, and I don't know how to describe it, and I won't be taking any questions, but you know what I mean. So we are in it. And I actually really like this opening because we're just kind of thrown into a lot of family drama and grievances immediately, as you would be. I really hate it when stories start too tidily. So, significantly, Brick is really just not engaging with his wife at all. He's just completely shut down, like a brick wall. I really hate that Tennessee Williams named him Brick. Can we just agree that that's tacky?
Or like, you're swimming, when you get your swimming certificate and you've got to get a brick from the bottom of a pool. Maggie's like that. She's trying to get that brick from the bottom of the drink.
Hark at you. Look at that little... Yeah, Maggie in the lifeguard reading.
Yeah, swimming certificate reading.
So, Brick is just a depressed himbo gone to seed. I'll give a kind of himbo reading here, although I hate it when himbos are sad.
Yeah, because they don't know really how to articulate it, as we will see.
Yes.
He is a himbo, isn't he?
Brick has also got a broken leg, and he's recently quit his job and has broken his ankle by drunkenly jumping hurdles at 3 o'clock in the morning at the local high school track. So just a lot of demons to unpack here.
Should have been in the maths corridor, shouldn't he?
Mathletes is where I really shined in high school. Maggie just talks a lot in general, and she opens with this absolute wall of text about all the schemes that she thinks Gooper and May have to get Brick sent to rehab. So Brick is a bit of a drinker, and he's been trying to drown his sorrows, but those fuckers learned the backstroke, and we're not quite sure why he's a drinker. It's over something. So Maggie thinks May and Gooper are trying to get power of attorney over Brick, and thereby get their hands on all the family money. But Maggie says, don't you worry, Big Daddy dotes on Brick. And she thinks that Big Daddy, that dirty old man, kinda has the hots for her. She also talks a lot of shit about May's family and about how they're not that hot in society. Maggie is frankly a giant bitch, and I love her. Just picture a vintage Barbie, but 35 and mean as dirt, and you have Maggie.
And taller. Brick, he's not very impressed by Maggie's spiel, and he looks at her in a way that she says freezes up her blood. Maggie says that she's lonely. Here we get a little line from her. Living with someone you love can be lonelier than living entirely alone.
That's right, Daniel. Play to the cheap seats.
If the one that you love doesn't love you. So she also brings up someone named Skipper.
Nice
Another
name.
funny name, yeah. Something mysterious happened to Skipper. We don't know what. Maggie says that Brick was always a tremendous lay. He's very good in bed. Largely because he was so indifferent to having sex with her. So, for him it was just a sort of,
Mechanical process, I guess.
punch in and out, Don't quite know what that means.
You know exactly what that means. Okay, so he's indifferent to having sex with her. Waterboarding could not get that admission out of me, and here she is not only freely giving that up, but using it to flirt.
It's because you're a frosty northerner, though, isn't it? We're in the deep south now. She says that if Brick were to tell her they would never have sex again, she would stab herself in the heart. Yeah, it's quite fraught, a lot of intense energy. The sense of a contest going on, it's almost like a sort of bout, isn't it? Like a boxing match. I like that at the same time we can hear a croquet game going on outside, so that's very genteel. So there's a bit of a slightly heavy-handed conjunction of the genteel game versus this kind of nasty one. And they talk about victory, what Maggie's victory is by staying on as long as she can. It's the victory of a cat on a hot tin roof. Why does she do it? She's just staying on it, I guess, as long as she can. So that's the gist there.
Don't base your marital decisions on cat logic. A cat has no concept of holy matrimony. A cat is a fool.
He says very bluntly that she has forgotten the conditions they agreed on for him to stay living with her. She says that they're not living together, they're just occupying the same cage.
Sounds like the sort of contract you have to sign when you marry Tom Cruise. So May, the horrible sister-in-law, bursts in and stops the fight between Maggie and Brick. And she and Maggie are just real catty to each other. It's very, like, bitch, better get out of my way, bitch. Brick just continues to be unimpressed because he likes his marriage like he likes his drinks, on the rocks. So after May leaves, Brick urges Maggie to take a lover, and he says he feels embarrassed for her. And Maggie won't leave him. She's like, Brick, I love you like you love liquor.
Can we all talk about May showing off about her kids? The kiddies put on a show. Polly played the piano, Buster and Sonny drums, and then they turned out the lights and Dixie and Trixie performed the toe dance in fairy costume with sparklers. Big Daddy just beamed. And then Maggie responds, but why'd you give dogs' names to your kiddies. So there you go. That's the sort of that's the kind of passive-aggressive to actually aggressive kind of relationship that she has with May.
Do you think that Gooper and May have dogs that are named really normal things like Diane and Gerald?
Stephen and
So Big Mama, who is Brick and Gooper's mother, in case you couldn't context clues that for yourself, she comes in announcing, "Hey everybody, Big Daddy doesn't actually have cancer. He just has, quote, a spastic colon." Great, what a wonderful thing to announce to everyone. A spastic colon is the name of a ska band I just formed for us.
All right, like Force Meat.
Oh, Force Me! I forgot about that.
Can I just ask a question about Big Mama? Is she big, or did she just take Big Daddy's name?
Why, what do you think?
I think it's like Franklin and Eleanor Roosevelt. I think they both were already called Big.
You have to get married at that point.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. There's only one woman in Mississippi big enough to marry Big Daddy.
She's the size of a Zeppelin, and I love her. So Big Mama and Maggie have a bit of an argument, because is there anyone Maggie hasn't fought with yet? And Big Mama says Maggie's always going off on the no-neck monsters. She's mad at Maggie for not having kids yet. She's mad at Maggie because Brick drinks, and apparently that's Maggie's fault. Yeah. And she insinuates that Maggie is bad at sex. And just the level of dysfunction is off the charts. What do you care what your son's sex life is? Just, it's creepy.
It's actually very important.
And Maggie's like, it's not my fault my husband is broken.
Have you tried turning him off and turning him back on again?
Turning him off? Yes, that has been established.
When Big Mama comes in initially, she's cross because the door's locked to their bedroom. It's all set just in Maggie and Brick's bedroom, isn't it? And Big Mama says, "I hate locked doors in a house," and there's a lot of that sort of stuff about privacy and people intruding on privacy, isn't there, throughout the play?
Son, I need to check that you're consummating to make sure you're doing it all right. After Big Mama leaves, Brick finally comes out of the bathroom where he's been hiding, and he just takes a big slug of bourbon. My favorite thing about the Deep South is that everything is measured in slugs.
Yeah.
So, as she sees him drinking again, Maggie begs him to look at how perky her boobs are. Just, honey, what you're selling, he ain't buying. So she, clearly it's just trying to make him jealous. She talks about how the guys in their social circle keep trying to have sex with her, and Brick is totally checked out. He's like, you should let them. So she screams that she's gonna stay on that hot tin roof, by which she means stay with him and make him love her, as long as she can. Look, play stupid games, win stupid prizes, Maggie. He is just not that into you because, spoiler, he is a big, closeted homo.
Well, we can talk about this more, but I think there's something more complicated going on. He's definitely not interested in sex, though. I think that's...
Well, regardless, this plan of Maggie's, what is this going to get her except liver disease and more disdain and nothing? Oh, you think it's all about the loot? Yeah. It's all about making that paper, making it rain.
Let the record show that I am robbing.
He's doing the
kind of money.
The money fingers.
Maggie reveals to Brick that Big Mama is mistaken. She's convinced that Big Daddy has not got a spastic colon, that he is in fact dying of cancer. And then she kind of talks a little bit how much she always liked him for his lack of pretension. That said, she says that the dying have to fool themselves. However authentic Big Daddy may be, however much of a true Mississippi redneck he is, even now he's incredibly rich, even he's kind of not being fully honest with his own physical states. That's interesting.
Do you think she likes him just because he has a neck? People out there who are studying this text, do an essay on the use of necks.
Yes, yeah, that would be good, though. I like that. So, Big Daddy was, a little backstory, Big Daddy was just the overseer of the plantation when it belonged to the two quote-unquote confirmed bachelors, but he eventually kind of acquired it from them and turned it into a very wealthy piece of property. The most valuable acres this side of the Valley Nile. So he doesn't keep saying that, he keeps comparing it to the Nile. Nile. There you go, there's another little crap reading for the students. She's nervous because Big Daddy hasn't yet made a will. So we're back to the whole inheritance to her.
Yeah, probate party of 5. Your tape will be ready in 2 months or however long he has.
Yeah. Maggie goes off a bit on her own history. She comes from a good family, of a respectable southern Mississippi family, but her daddy was a drinker.
Everybody's daddy was a drinker.
She grew up poor, and her family had to try and keep up appearances. All the old Southern Belle quandary. And she tells Brick that she's sorry she had sex with Skipper.
What?
Yeah. Just throw that out there. Turns out the bad blood between them has some qualifying factors. So she and Skipper, she claims, both loved Brick. Brick shut them out or something, so they had sex with each other to feel closer to Brick.
Yeah, that's the phrase. The way to a man's heart is through his best friend's genitals.
Yeah, I think...
You know, that old chestnut. So the prefab joke I have written here, this is a bit one for the young people, this is some young people slang, is Maggie is an intrusive thought. T-H-O-T. I was pretty proud of that. Maggie recalls when she and Brick used to double date with Skipper and his girlfriend, and she could always tell that she and the other girlfriend were more or less beards for the two of them. The real date was happening between Brick and Skipper. And yet, you married this dude knowing what you were getting into. Brick says that what he and Skipper had was good and pure, and she's trying to make it dirty and sordid. I don't want to live in a world where one guy can't be desperately in love with another guy without someone making it gay. Not in my America.
See, I know you're taking the piss, but I really think that is what it is. I think there is a sort of non-sexual love that Brick thought that he had with Skipper, and then...
Daniel, how many male friends do you have that you are filled with white-hot longing over? You are the straightest man I have ever met in my life.
I don't think so.
I do.
Okay, wow. Didn't know. It's such an emblem of heterosexuality.
Like, you're just really comfortable in your masculinity, and...
I'm like, wow, God.
Yeah,
it's
obviously
all coming out, ain't it? God. Or not. I didn't even know.
But how many of your male friends' shoulders do you touch with conditions of plausible longing? How many do you double date with, and really the two of you are like feeding, spooning chocolate cake into each other's mouths and things? And...
Well, that's happened a few times. I always thought it was just, that's what I'm saying, I always thought it was just, it doesn't have to be anything more. Just I'm satisfied with the cake. Maggie says to Brick, "You and Skipper had something that had to be kept on ice. Yes, incorruptible, yes. And death was the only icebox where you could keep it."
This is just to say, I have fucked the Skipper that was in the icebox, and which you were probably saving for the late 1960s. Forgive me. He was delicious, so sweet, and so cold. So yeah, Brick is pretty pissed off about all of this, and he says he's gonna kill Maggie. He's gonna bludgeon her to death with his crutch. And she's like, "Who are you kidding, Cracker Bones? Get out of here. Come back when you break something cool like the fourth wall." Cracker Bones is not my joke. I just really love that expression.
Maggie says, a while back, she had told Skipper either to admit his love for Brick or leave Brick alone. Because, she's sick of the whole will they, won't they, closeted thing. Skipper's response was to attempt to seduce Maggie to prove to her that he was straight. One way of getting someone into bed, I suppose. He's completely psychologically shattered after the experience of going to bed with Maggie. Brick goes insane at this revelation and starts flailing around at Maggie with his crutches, trying to hit her. Brick's like, "You sassafras," and he's kind of motleying it. "You sassafras eating young man, how dare you, insult the name of my erstwhile partner."
Are we gonna fuck or what? Is this foreplay? It's been so long.
I'm gonna continue to rail and remonstrate against thee.
Oh yeah, just where I hope this evening was headed. We've established I'm into this. Treat 'em mean, keep 'em keen.
Yeah, Maggie likes. They've all got their weird peccadillos, haven't they?
One of the no-neck monsters bursts in on Brick trying to murder Maggie. So, let's carry this therapy into the next generation. And this little brat ridicules Maggie for not being able to have kids. I'm just with Maggie on this one. Just, oh my God, you hateful bitch.
You're just mad because you can't have kids. She says something like that.
I would punt that child out the window.
The kids are always bursting in, though, aren't they? Like, playing with their little guns and things, aren't they? So I think, and they're meant to kind of be this sort of intrusive presence in the house. Like, they're a dawg-named Greek chorus.
They're the goddamn candy man, these little kids.
That's why they are this kind of malevolent presence. That's why it's more psychological maybe than a Greek chorus. They're like your intrusive thoughts.
When they take the little girl out, Maggie reveals she's been to a gynecologist and she has no reproductive issues that actual peen and vagine sex couldn't fix. And, hey honey, I'm ovulating now, so could you please freak me nasty? And I'm just sitting there going, honey, he is at least 4 drinks and 4 fights deep.
Perfect time.
Don't know. You sure?
Oh, you don't think so?
I just don't think it's going to be happening tonight. So that's the end of Act 1.
Big Daddy. Yeah, you heard about him. He's here. So Big Daddy comes in. He's annoyed because he has to make nice with the Reverend. Yeah, Reverend Tucker, he's here. You know that guy. He's been invited to dinner and is sniffing around for money to be left to the church after Big Daddy dies. Everyone is there. They get a bit rowdy, loud, and obnoxious.
They're all whooping and hollering like they're Stardust Cowboy.
Exactly, yeah. Getting cards and letters from people they don't even know. There's a Rhinestone Cowboy, it's different. Big, there's one for the, what's this, Glenn Campbell fans out there? Big Mama, she's up to her usual tricks. She grabs Reverend Tucker and pulls him onto her lap. She's notorious for this sort of inelegant horseplay. So, yeah, it's a bad party. Maggie is dryly amused by it all because, we read in the stage directions, which I like, she's the only one there who's conscious of and amused by the grotesque.
She's there writing her thesis.
Yeah.
How the post-bellum South's resolution into tipage is a clear return of commedia dell'arte.
I like that. That sounds like a thesis I would like to read. Yeah. Oh, that's great. Oh, I know you're just taking the piss, but I feel like that really... the Bakhtinian reading of the play. It lends itself to that.
You're such a nerd.
Thank you. Big Daddy turns into a jerk. I didn't write this. I'm not going to say that. Big Daddy is a bit of an arse, isn't he? He asks Brick how he hurt himself. He makes a big point of Brick's crutch.
Running away from his problems, running away from his marriage. Take your pick, really.
Brick repeats that he had been jumping hurdles at the high school track, and Big Daddy says, "Are you sure? Or had you had some sort of sex accident while getting yourself a bit of poontang?"
That is actually what's in the play. That's not Daniel being crude.
With another woman out at the high school. The careers guidance counselor or something, I don't know. So
everyone sort of scatters a little bit, and Brick and Big Daddy meet up, and they have a heart-to-heart. And they talk about how gross everyone's greed is, how May and Maggie are really similar deep down, and how they kind of detest all of the women in the families. And Big Daddy also says, creepily, that May is a good breeder. Yeah. Which you said here that wives are meddlesome cattle. I think I wonder about the sort of slur breeder, the semi-slur from queer communities for heterosexual ones.
I think that's definitely an ambiguity.
Yeah,
I like that.
I think there's a double meaning
because there's like a sort of being a breeder. It's a takedown from a heteronormative and from like a kind of homosexual subculture from both vantages.
I wrote that I'm giving Big Daddy a queer reading here because apparently when one of the two confirmed bachelors who used to own the place died, where Big Daddy was just the overseer, he got a promotion from being an overseer to becoming the other one's quote-unquote partner, and then he inherited the place. Sky's the limit under the stars and bars, baby. Work it, queen.
Was he known as Daddy then?
Oh! Then Big Daddy reminisces about his tour of Europe with Big Mama years back, and how Europe is just one big fire sale, and how they bought and bought and bought expensive old stuff in Europe, stuff they didn't even need. So it's a very, like, New World versus Old World thing.
I like that bit where he says that some of the stuff they have is still in the basement, and the basement flooded, so all this kind of priceless Rococo stuff has been completely ruined. Good, I think. There's nothing more Southern Gothic or implicitly homosexual than a decaying Chippendale. Is there male strippers?
Yeah, thank you for...
But it's also a type of posh desk.
The one thing Big Daddy can't buy, though, with his $10 million that he apparently has... Did you measuring worth this?
Yes.
Did you?
No.
I thought any historical statement of somebody's worth, you would just be like... Sandy from Greece going, "Tell me about it, stud." So the one thing Big Daddy can't buy with the $10 million he has...
A dinosaur.
A man's life.
Okay.
I mean, never mind the slave trade and the sharecropping situation where he very much did buy people's lives. No. We don't need to worry about that.
He talks about interestingly, when he talks about his trip to Europe, he talks about all the kind of exploitation and the kind of priests all kind of getting rich off the kind of European peasants and stuff. So clearly he has this kind of pretend sort of political volition.
This janky little power bottom, I want him to work a little less sometimes.
Big Daddy enjoys having a little heart-to-heart with his son, and he's even slightly randified.
He's slightly... what?
Randified.
Oh,
Up
you're...
for it, game. He's a gamer. Well, you see, indeed. He wants some women. He hasn't had sex with Big Mama for the last 5 years, and he didn't even really like having sex with Big Mama. Big Daddy brags about his sexual performance,
Nope.
doesn't he? What?
Shut it down.
Oh, okay, right. I thought you were telling me no.
No, well, I don't even want you to recount this.
He's like, now I'm recovered from my complaint, which, as we all remember, is not cancer and is definitely merely the well-known condition of the spastic colon. Now he's recovered, he's going to pick himself a choice woman, strip her naked and smother her in minks, choke her with diamonds, and hump her from hell to breakfast. Breakfast? Let's have the little breakfast jingle.
I love that the tiniest hint of food in a text and you're like, let's party, bitch.
Yeah. They kind of enjoy each other's company for a bit, but it starts turning ugly quite quickly. Big Daddy steals Brick's crutch and refuses to give it... Yeah, that is rude. Refuses to give it back until Brick tells him why he drinks.
God, he sure buys a lot of alcohol. I hope he's not a shopaholic.
Yeah, I think the crutch thing, there's a bit of a find the phallus thing there, especially with Big Daddy taking the crutch off Brick. Brick is this kind of...
oh, yeah, for sure.
Sexless kind of...
Repressed
kind of, yeah, neurotic type, and then Big Daddy kind of going on about having sex with people and taking this big... Wow.
The thing that gives you mobility and agency,
Exactly,
which is,
yeah.
Shorthand for masculinity. Yeah, Big Daddy is a better straight and a better gay than Brick.
It's hard that when your dad is better at both of those than you.
So I think there's very much a class and time reading in terms of Brick and his father. So Brick has more the sense of being a gentleman because he's born into it. It's almost his birthright. Even though your father isn't, because the father worked his way up the social ladder and created these conditions. But this also means that Brick, because he's in this sort of false sense of sort of nobility, even though it's only one generation deep, it means he's more stuck in the past than Big Daddy, who's more willing to sort of just go with it.
I think you're definitely right, but I think it's even more complicated than that. It's not just that it's not quite that he's stuck in the past, but I think it's that sense that you've been born to a rank rather than having been an agent, a master of your own sort of fate.
Yeah.
But your explicit consciousness of your dad, who is very much not the nobility that you purport to be and have been born to, completely undermines that every day that you see your dad. I think it's like that, isn't it? Like, it's not about being stuck in the past, it's about seeing that your present is a lie through your dad.
Yeah, well, and that leads us to our next big quotation.
Yes, let's talk. After a little bit of tussling, Brick screams that he drinks out of disgust at living a lie.
Which works on several levels, as you're talking
indeed,
about.
Yeah. Big Daddy's like, well, we all live lies. I pretended to care for Big Mama, even later regular as a piston.
Jesus Christ.
I don't know who's having sex with pistons, I don't know. He also says he pretended to love that son of a bitch Gooper. His own boy. That's terrible, isn't it? What a prick.
No, Gooper's a fucking dial
Essence
tone.
will appear. Big Daddy remarks that Brick started drinking when his friend Skipper died. Maybe a little bit more than friends.
Son, I've seen Sailor Moon. I know what friend means.
Yep.
The idea of Big Daddy watching Sailor Moon is an image that I cradle near and dear to my heart. Brick starts to get upset about all of this, and Big Daddy basically says, hey, son, we've all bottomed in our youth, including me. Who hasn't done a little butt stuff with their guy friends?
He doesn't explicitly say that.
Well, he
says, I've bummed. That could have a number of meanings.
Well, my note here is, reader, my jaw hit the floor. Big Daddy is a bisexual hero for the ages. Slay Queen!
I really think...
We had a little fight in our notes here.
Yeah, I think... He says that he's bummed. He says that he's because he used to be poor, right? That's what he's saying. He's like, I used to be poor, I used to be...
God knows, a playwright has never had a double meaning. Let alone a queer one. You can't use the word bum.
Hey, you can't have it both ways. I know that you think the play is shallow. It can't be both.
Double meaning is not that deep, Daniel.
Well, maybe not this one.
Him and that old gay guy who owned the plantation before, you know they did it in the corn crib.
That's perfect material for one of those awful prequels that you get these days.
Yes.
The Big Daddy prequel.
Yes.
Peter Ocello.
And there'd be some sort of, like, heavily symbolic, like, peeling of corn or, like, picking of cotton or something like that, just, like, very overt. Brick loses his mind about all of this gay stuff, and he's like, Dad, Skipper and I did not do a sodomy together, thank you very much. He is just furious that two healthy, handsome men can't have a, quote, real, deep friendship that's respectable and clean. He's like, hey, can't one dude just have a Helga Pataki-style shrine to another dude in his closet without it being weird and gay? And Brick goes off about how, sure, maybe they were soulmates, and maybe they shared hotel rooms, and maybe they touched each other's shoulders casually with white-hot longing, but there's nothing queer about it.
But he says... I don't know why I'm really pushing this. It's like, I have no special stakes in Brick not being gay. However, he says that the purity of their relationship, purity in his terms, of course, is precisely what made it not normal. He thinks that homosexuality is normal, but he thought that his relationship with Skipper was something different to that. I
don't know that he thought... Well, I'm going to kind of agree with you here, because what he had with Skipper was so healthy, and all of his heterosexual relationships are so dysfunctional, and those were the only ones, obviously, in 1955 that are being modeled for him. And in the 50s, we were real big on all that sort of, like, parental modeling and, you know, what children see, that I think he associates a healthy relationship with being somehow disturbed.
Brick says that he could never truly love Maggie, and she knew it. And because she knew it, she tried to poison his friendship with Skipper by convincing Skipper he was gay.
Ah, the liberal agenda. I found it.
Yeah. She convinced him he was gay, and then had to convince...
Duh?
Yeah.
Duh.
Yeah.
I'm Daniel, I got a head cold.
Yeah.
I'm real stupid when I got a head cold.
Exactly. Maggie tried to poison his friendship with Skipper by convincing Skipper he was gay. But then, thereby convincing him to prove that he wasn't gay by sleeping with her, but when he couldn't, you know...
perform.
Yeah, seal the deal. Skipper recognised that must be proof that he is gay. He turned to drink and shortly afterwards suicided himself.
As opposed to suicided somebody else.
Oh, have you seen that? Nasty.
Well, it's pretty ambiguous about how Skipper dies. So the implication is that he committed suicide, but they also seem to slightly imply that he did it through drinking, or like he died from drinking. So I'm not sure if this is like a Hendrix style thing, or like if he did a like leaving Las Vegas sort of situation. Big Daddy calls bullshit on all of this. He says it sounds like Brick is leaving something out of the story. And Brick's like, before he died, Skipper called me and we talked through some stuff and I hung up on him. Anyway, can I misdirect you over here? And Big Daddy said this...
Where? It would on me.
Big Daddy says this is all Brick's fault, and that Brick would rather drive Skipper to his own death than look truth in the eye. Brick basically puts his fingers in his ears and is like, la la la, shut up, you're dying! They're lying about the medical report, you have cancer and shut up! And Big Daddy loses it and bursts out of the room screaming that the whole family is a bunch of liars. Question, who are these physicians that are talking to the family and not directly to Big Daddy? I mean, is somebody being bribed here?
That's naughty, isn't it? I feel like a doctor shouldn't... Where's your Hippocratic oath?
Hi, I'm Dr. Kickback.
So, it's Act 3. Yeah, Act 2 is just Brick and Big Daddy, pretty much. Big Daddy goes missing. They assume he's just gone to bed or is off talking to Brick somewhere. The family are all marvelling about how much he ate for his tea. Cornbread with molasses. Don't forget the molasses. It's very dry otherwise. And harpanjar. And I had to look that up. It's a sort of kind of rice dish. Brick finally appears. He gets another drink. Families are like, oh man, he's been drinking too much. He only drinks until he feels the click in his head that puts him at peace. And he hasn't had that click yet.
Sounds healthy.
The family doctor, Dr. Bohr, he's been milling around the party in the background, him and Reverend Tucker. He sits down with Big Mama, Gooper, and May. Big Daddy, Brick and Maggie are out of the room at this point. They sit her down and tell her that Big Daddy actually does have cancer. Big Mama cries out for Brick. Where is my only son? What?
Jesus.
Yeah. She wants to be comforted by her only son. Gooper, well...
The fuck did you just say, Big Mama?
Needless to say, Gooper is not pleased with his mum saying that. The Reverend and the Doctor are like, well, I'll be leaving now. That's a funny bit.
This is the point? This is your line?
Yeah.
After everything we've just seen? Okay. So Gooper thinks it's time for Big Daddy to start taking morphine, which I think, my sinister reading of this whole thing is that's Gooper's way of getting power of attorney faster. And then May is like, oh, I've taken a course on giving injections. I can give Big Daddy his morphine injections. And again, I think that's shorthand for her accidentally wanting to kill him.
No, I think they're concerned for the old, odious individual.
So Big Mama declares that they need to go get Brick sobered up so he can take over running the plantation. And Gooper and May exchange worried looks.
May can be witty. Let's not all be down on May. I like May. I think May's the heroine of the piece. She's like, Gooper has always had to carry loads of responsibilities. Brick never carried a thing in his life but a football or a highball.
Highball is my favorite Cheech and Chong Regency drama. So Gooper, who it turns out is a corporate lawyer in the city, he has brought his briefcase to this family party, and he brings that out and he starts discussing how jealous he is of Brick and how he's going to guarantee that he gets his fair deal and everything. So he just like brings out all this paperwork for a trusteeship, and he's just like fondling this paperwork like he's about to buy a breakfast in the morning.
I think that's just responsible. I think Gooper's a good son.
So none of the family is having Gooper's whole, trusteeship thing. Maggie sees her chance now to consolidate their position and roust Gooper once and for all. So everyone's like, Gooper, you're gross. Maggie's like, now's my time. Now's my moment. She makes an announcement. She and Brick are going to have a baby.
What? Baby klaxon. Get a baby klaxon in here right now, please.
And everyone stops dead in what I like to call a pregnant pause. May doesn't believe a word of it because she's been eavesdropping and she clearly has heard that they have not had sex in a very long time. Big Mama is...
Could have... Well, anyway. Carry on.
Could have... Go on. Finish your ostensibly dirty thought. I think that's why you probably cut off there. Go on.
Turkey basters. I feel like American kitchens are just crammed with turkey basters.
Turkey baster, Daniel. You nasty. So Big Mama is delighted, thinking in the biggest mental gymnastics I've seen, that a child will make Brick stop drinking. Yes, that's why all those moms do wine o'clock, because traditionally children don't stress you out. Then Maggie pours Brick a big drink. Again, honey, if you're hoping to have sex tonight, not the best move.
May and Gooper say Maggie is lying because they haven't heard her pregnancy confirmed by the doctor.
Oh, you fucking creeps.
Maggie says that she went to another gynecologist elsewhere. Someone you don't know, a friend of a friend's gynecologist.
My gynecologist who lives in Canada.
Yeah, exactly. So Gooper's like, well, who was this so-called Canadian gynecologist? I want to find out.
When your brother-in-law starts asking about the details of your cooter, it is time to cut this fucking family off.
They leave, and Maggie thanks Brick for not correcting her in front of everyone about the fake baby. Yeah, the baby's not real. Brick has a few more bevies.
3 shots in a row. We're on the shots part of the evening.
Yeah, and he says, I'm going to sleep on the couch tonight, darling.
You know you can sleep in a bed and not have sex.
Well, maybe...
Like, just
yeah,
put some
like you did with Skipper, supposedly.
Put some pillows down the line of the bed or whatever.
What, in case you accidentally... Well, anyway, let's not go on that. He finally found the click that makes him feel at peace. Hooray! You see, it's got a happy ending after all. Maggie's like, come on, I'm ovulating. I'm going to lock away all the liquor, after the horse is bolted, so to speak. And she throws away Brick's crutch and says, I'll only give you your booze and your crutch back after we have conceived a child.
Sexual slavery much, Maggie?
It's all part of the fun. Brick doesn't resist the idea. And she's like, I curse the weak, beautiful people. For example, Brick himself. But I love you. And Brick's like, wouldn't that be funny if it were true? So that's the end of that fun and larks.
You know what? I really have hope for them. I just wanted to compliment you on your accent.
My English one.
Your English one is lovely, yes.
Thank you.
Just didn't Daniel do a good job, everybody?
Thank you. Casting, please.
Casting?
Casting.
This is where I talked originally about this being a screwball tragedy, and I was trying to think about directors who already do that kind of film. This would make a great Coen Brothers film.
Yeah.
Because they handle both drama and comedy really well, and there's a lot of repetition in their work already. So I would love to see somebody like Luke Evans as Brick, Frances McDormand as Big Mama, John Goodman as Big Daddy. And if they were a little bit younger, if we could have made this just a few years ago, George Clooney and Holly Hunter as Gooper and May, because they both play uptight dorks really, really well. So I don't have anybody cast for Maggie particularly. I think that could be it.
Could be anyone.
It could be whatever Hollywood starlet. Maybe you.
Oh, me? Yeah. I've always depended on the kindness of people with good taste in my performances.
You'd be beautiful.
Okay.
Maybe Scarlett Johansson, because she's actually quite good.
I would be playing Scarlett Johansson then.
No.
Oh, she would be Maggie.
She'd be Maggie.
Well, who would I be then? Reverend Tucker?
Obviously. If you were going to be...
My vestments are drenched.
If you were going to be anyone, you'd be Reverend Tucker.
A massive demotion from Maggie to Reverend Tucker.
Why would you want to play Maggie?
Because it's the main role. It's the eponymous role. I'm good at the voice. Is this like an interview? Why would you want to play Maggie?
Yeah. This is an audition. I didn't want to scare you, but these past 21 episodes have all been an extended...
Leading up to this moment.
It was an extended screen test.
An audio screen test.
You have to get the voice on. She's a talker. That's the important thing.
I share a taste for the grotesque and a slightly bitchy sense of humour. Can't believe that. Me, John Goodman, John Greatman, some other people.
Well, look, I suppose I cast myself in the Crucible. You should be allowed to cast yourself in one
Yes,
thing.
exactly. That's disgraceful.
The difference is David Tennant and I would make magic together, and I'd be really good in that role. So, Daniel, you know that I have strong feelings about Tennessee Williams. Do you think this was a masterpiece or a disaster piece?
Oh, you didn't like this?
I'm not sure how I felt about it. Is this really good, or is this really hammy?
I think it's the blend of like naturalism or like supposed sort of a sense of like real relationships between people and real kind of settings, and these kind of completely outsized crazy caricature characters. I think that weird blend almost is the crux of the play, is what saves it, as well as it being its chief shortcoming. I think I can't remember precisely what he said, but I think the whole point of the play is it's just like a slice of life. It's like literally in time. Like that's why the exposition is ostensibly quite limited, and that's why there's no real conclusion and no real introduction. It's just like you're in it, the thick of it, for a couple of hours, and then you're out of it. That makes all of the commedia dell'arte types that you identified, all of the ridiculous caricatures, they gain a kind of realism. And I think, in real life people are kind of grotesque, aren't they?
No, but all that stuff I liked. We don't need to repeat the hot tin roof metaphor 2 or 3 times. Like, you said it once, just leave it. So it's just, a lot of this felt very heavy-handed for me.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. There is a lot of repetition. And
I'm not against repeated lines.
Is the system we live. We haven't even said the word mendacity so far, but they just constantly say mendacity in a way that feels, on the nose.
But even the repetition, again, I liked the repetition because they're verbally trapped.
You like the repetition?
I do. It's how it's...
I like the repetition.
Sorry. I was actually gearing up for...
Okay,
did you see my bright little face?
Analysis is more important than naff jokes.
Sorry.
What did you like about the repetition? No, you don't apologize. I'm apologizing.
This struck me as sort of almost a genuine portrait of a really f***ed up family. Because I have relatives who get stuck telling the same stories or airing the same grievances and using the same expressions over and over again, where they almost become jokes to the other family members, where you can see, like, you've never left your hometown, you're verbally trapped, like, can you just get over the thing that happened 40 years ago? But I like that in this. But it's how it's used, because occasionally, again, like, using the cat on the hot tin roof metaphor, We need that once. If you're going to title your play that, you give that to us once, not 2 or 3 times. That's tacky.
That is the funny thing, isn't it? And it's when they describe their predicament that it's at its weakest. I think that's the point, that Tennessee Williams is good at that kind of like fly on the wall, naturalistic approach. Like you say, that it does feel like you're looking at some kind of awful provincial family. But yeah, it's when they start trying to articulate their predicament in a way that is meant to be profound that it slightly loses it. Like constantly referring to yourself as a cat on a hot tin roof. Well, the moment you acknowledge your situation, that changes the situation. And I think that's where it slightly falls flat. I agree with you.
Why does she even want to stay with this guy who so disdains her?
Well, we kind of know, don't we? Because she talks about her family background. She was a Southern belle, but her family were like rich in blood, so to speak, but poor in any meaningful sense. And there's that bit later on where, I mean, we're going to get onto this, but there's a bit later on where she's like showing off about her family having freed their slaves 5 years before the American Civil War. So I think the point is,
and yet she won't free Brick.
Well, that's another reading. But I was saying more that she's of noble blood. Brick, however noble he is in spirit, he's not noble in blood because he's descended from a overseer that made good, but he's rich. It's one of those situations, isn't it, where she's like, I can get back into, this is my birthright almost.
But she's then talking about all the men in their circle who are presumably also wealthy men who are really into her. And I'm like, you could probably quite easily marry somebody else. I mean, she talks about how attractive she is. She's young.
But the millions of acres, the richest acres this side of the Valley Nile, maybe Brick's the big prize. And also, I assume that they were talking about sort of just casual infidelities rather than, I assume that the other men were married already.
Oh, possibly.
But maybe this is me just assuming that. But
well, and if we also look at how much she talks in that early bit, just clearly trying to fill this silence. I mean, if we're looking at this from a psychology angle, this is a woman on a razor's edge.
Yeah.
So you could sort of think, is she pushed to this by her own socioeconomic position, and then her husband is totally shutting her out, and she thinks she's going to lose everything.
Yeah.
And you talked about setting this all in one room and it being quite claustrophobic, and that's the point, the idea of privacy and people constantly bursting in.
And the bed being ever present as well. Cause it's that sort of big, sweet bedroom thing, isn't it? But so what were you...
Well, I was just thinking about this being a dark version of the Phaedo Sequence.
That's what I wrote, a psycho farce.
Yes.
That's another, sorry, I didn't want to interrupt you, but we keep doing that as well, trying to come up with a way of classifying the play, which I think is interesting in itself, right?
Yes.
So I called it a tragedy of manners, what did you call it? A
screwball tragedy.
A screwball tragedy, psycho farce.
Phaedo Sequence, we're circling around the same drain here.
I think, but that's part of the play, isn't it? I think
yes.
And that's what we've really talked about, the sense of naturalism coupled with these outsized, grotesque characters.
Yeah, so for those who don't know, the Phaedo Sequence, it's a term that was coined in theater in the 1900s, but the actual, what it depicts goes back well into the 1700s, if not earlier. So it's basically that sequence that you have usually in a comedy where it's usually somebody trying to seduce somebody else, and oh no, somebody bursts in and I have to sneak out the back door, and it's characters all coming in at the same time.
The vicar's in the cupboard. The fact that the vicar's in the play shows that Williams knows it's a farce.
Someone hides under a table because they can't see me here and I have to crawl out. So it's that sort of constant interruptions and hiding and
it's always someone in bed with their lover and then their husband comes home and then
I have to dress you up as a woman quickly and you're my maid, and but that is very present here of just people constantly interrupting and people hiding and people eavesdropping
bursting in we could even talk about that in a class sense, couldn't we? That because they are like aristocracy in the most material
American
sense. Well, in the most material sense of that term, right? They own millions and millions of acres of land. But the fact that Big Daddy is an ex-hobo or whatever and who kind of worked his way up to be an aristocrat shows that the material truths of the situation, they're not noble in the truest sense of that word. So in the same way, a farce can't really be a farce because they're not really living in it fully, are they? They're not fully immersed in that farcical tradition.
And it's this is so depressing and as much as this is actually a very funny play, especially depending on how you stage it, it's ultimately devastating.
Yeah, it's hard to read. I remember, because I did this for my A-levels, and I remember just thinking it's about a gay guy. This time around I'm there's a lot of nastiness and a lot of strange stuff going on.
So here's some advice. This play is partially written in an accent. They sort of write out some of the lines phonetically, and occasionally I was a little what? So read them aloud if you can't figure out what people are supposed to be saying. If something's written in dialect, it really, really helps to read it out loud. Now, the clue to the next episode is actually the clue to our next 2 episodes.
Lazy.
So we're doing 2 very famous texts back to back, and they're both titled in similar ways. Blank and blank.
The first one kind of doesn't have that as its
Well, how about you shut your pie hole for 5 minutes?
Okay. Yeah, great fun. I want to go to bed now.
Oh,
I want to have a lemsip. We're not sponsored by lemsip. We're sponsored by, whatever it's called, Measuring Worth. Whatever.
Oh, poor old Daniel. All right, I'll go. I'll make you a milky tea.
But you're ill too. Thanks for listening to Save Me From My Shelf. Our music is The Overture to Don Giovanni by Mozart, and cover art is by Catherine Wu. Our thanks to Aston University's Centre for Critical Inquiry into Society and Culture for funding the startup of this podcast. Contact us at savemefrommyshelf@gmail.com or at smfms_podcast on Twitter. And do not, I'm going to remind you, do not forget to rate, review, and subscribe. Do not forget. Thank you.